This is your captain speaking. We are making a minor course correction. Please keep your seatbelts fastened. Thank you.
Huh? That's silly. We should have just stayed at the airport until the flight plan was finalized.
Yes, a good flight plan certainly helps us avoid lots of course corrections, but sometimes we have to make them. And I have a great airplane analogy for it. It can be hard to create lift, which happens when air passes over the wings of an airplane in such a way that the pressure underneath the wing is greater than the pressure above the wing. When the upward lift exceeds the downward pull of gravity, the plane rises from the ground and achieves flight.
So if we're already in flight, it's easier to make course corrections?
Precisely.
Not sure I trust this method.
Paul is joined on his second mission by Timothy. By the way, the books of Timothy in the Bible are actually letters Paul wrote to him to guide the early Christians. It was a little like playing hot or cold to figure out where the Lord wanted them to go. They travel through Phrygia and Galatia, but the Lord says it's not time to preach in Asia, northern Turkey, so they turn toward Bithynia. But the Spirit says no, so they try a new direction. Rather than being paralyzed by not knowing what to do next, they just keep moving, and the Lord keeps redirecting them. You see, He directs us better when we're moving instead of standing still. It's that forward movement that brings lift and pumps you up. And so they find themselves in Philippi, doing their missionary best to feed Jesus' sheep wherever they are. They meet a Greek woman named Lydia, a wealthy merchant of purple cloth, so fancy and stylish. She opens her heart to Paul's teaching and is baptized, the first ever European convert. But all this talk of one true God upsets a lot of the locals. They prefer their pagan gods, some of whom encourage really gross sins. Paul and Silas are brutally flogged and imprisoned without a trial, which is illegal because Paul is a Roman citizen. But Paul keeps quiet and doesn't reveal that he's a Roman. He could have gotten out of that persecution, but maybe the Spirit told him that there was a greater purpose to be achieved. Around midnight, as Paul and Silas pray, a violent earthquake shakes the prison. The doors fly open and their chains fall off. The jailer knows he'll get in mega trouble for losing the prisoners, so he's about to kill himself when Paul stops him. Seeing this miracle and how the missionaries care about him, he pleads, "Oh, what must I do to be saved?" Paul tells him to believe in Jesus Christ, and he and his entire family accept the gospel. The jailer cares for and feeds the missionaries. We don't know anything more about his story, but we know that God had a plan for him. Let's all please remember that the crazy hard times will get easier, and the world is much better off with us than without us. So, only after Paul is allowed to go free does he reveal that he's a citizen of Rome. Oops! The magistrates scramble to apologize, but Paul's purpose is already met. He took the stripes when he didn't have to, and used the situation to help convert others. Now Paul continues on, guided by the Spirit. Many Gentiles and Greeks convert, and a few Jews. But mostly, the leaders of the Jews stir people up against Paul. When Paul makes it to Athens, he is aghast at how Athenians spend their idle time. Now Mars Hill is covered with altars and idols to all kinds of gods, even one to the unknown God to cover all their bases. These Greeks and Romans believed that if they pray and sacrifice to a particular god, that it would come down and enter the idol and grant them blessings. Well, Paul tries to use their own philosophies to convince them of the truth, but soon resorts to just testifying of Jesus. Unknown God? Really? You don't even know who you worship? "The God who made the world and everything in it is the Lord of heaven and earth and does not live in temples built by human hands." Okay, some think this means that God doesn't sanction temples, though he's repeatedly instructed his people to build temples and tabernacles. But the word temple here can also be translated as idol or shrine. Paul was actually saying God doesn't need us to build him an idol to dwell in. Many of these folks are open to Paul's message until he mentions resurrection, which they think is crazy. Are we ever like these people? We're excited to live the gospel until we're asked to give up one of our favorite things or ways of thinking? Paul then jumps into his third mission, retracing his steps from the second mission, preaching the truth and strengthening saints along the way. Miracles happen everywhere he goes. And for more awesome stories about Paul's ministry, continue watching Living Scripture's epic video. Now, sometimes Paul got a little long-winded in his preaching and literally preached a guy named Eutychus to death. Aren't we glad for even those hard chairs and benches at church? Ooh. But don't worry, perhaps a little sheepishly, Paul brings Eutychus back to life with the power of God. Wrapping up his mission, Paul is warned that if he returns to Jerusalem, the corrupt Jewish leaders will get him killed. Everybody begs him not to go back, but Paul is ready to die for Jesus. What an incredible change in Paul's life. Remember when he was ready to help kill the followers of Jesus? Now, what made Paul such a mighty missionary was that he knew it wasn't his mission. It was Jesus' mission, and Paul was just an instrument in the Lord's hands. Yes, we don't always have the whole flight plan, and that's okay. As long as we have lift and momentum, the Lord can help us make course corrections and discover miracles on our own adventure.